Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
So, guys, please do subscribe to all three channels. I think we're gonna be doing a little defining and revising a little bit, sort of. We want to, I think, create a little clearer lines of demarcation between the three channels, as we do have people that. Some people only want the news. Some people just want to go deep diving into all the mysteries out there. And then other people really want to just focus on the spiritual high vibe side of things. So, and then there are some that like all of it, all the above, or two of the three, and again, everybody is unique. And that's the whole point of existence, is that everybody is unique.
Isn't that nice? That's wonderful, really.
I mean, seriously, that is it. And so there's been a lot of questions. We put out there yesterday, what is the true importance of a belief system? And so, it's gotten a lot of different comments from different points of views. And one thing that we want to share is some stuff we just got from going into meditation. And just to clarify a little bit more on what we're trying to get across, and when we say we, it's I don't even think it was initially really Cindy and I. This is from the guides that wants to come across, and it really was the guides. It was in direct channeling when Cindy was not even in her body, that they were saying, we just wanted to reiterate the importance of a belief system. But you see, there's the problem, quote unquote. The issue is that humanity has been traumatized by belief systems.
I think that's the key point. So we're looking in here and seeing comments where people are questioning, and they should. And if there's things in life that strike you as weird or odd or even painful, absolutely look at that. That's a flag. That's something asking for help. Take a look and see what's happened. But I believe that the organized religion in this world has done so much damage, and people are so traumatized. So, you can barely even touch them with anything because, ouch, that hurts. It's like getting a sunburn. Once you get a sunburn and you're an already sensitive being, you touch that sunburn and it's going to get a reaction. So I like to look at these things as learning opportunities to enhance any words that might need to be said or any refinement that might need to be done. But what I've gotten is this world that we live in, this bubble, this sphere that we live in, there's Christians call this thing, they call it prayer. Spiritualists might call it manifestation. Atheists call it quantum physics. Say witches will call it spells. But ultimately, it's all the same thing. It is consciousness. And there's beings that have come here to give us examples when they connect with their heart chakra on how to work with this consciousness, how to work with this thing. It is definitely a power that is greater than ourselves. And we are deliberately limited in these bodies. We are situated in a way where we can have the maximum amount of expansion when we are in these bodies.
The analogy I was getting when I was in meditation was, we can look at it from this perspective. Say consciousness, if we wanted to just look at consciousness and view consciousness as the water on the planet, the oceans, right? Well, if you were to say incarnate, have an incarnation up here, you're going to have a very cold experience. At times it's going to be almost completely dark, and at other times you'll be exposed to longer periods of light. Again, your experience is going to be one that would be very, very different from, say, incarnating in the Mediterranean. And again, very different from incarnating in the Gulf of Mexico or the Caribbean. And yet, when we look at it, all this water is truly one. Now, what is consciousness itself? That's the key question, to understand. And, there were some comments which are just questions and comments that have been put out there for thousands of years, millennia. And that is, I am not the body is one of the things that we've talked about with self-realization. I am not the body. I'm apparently in here, but I'm not always in here because, again, when I dream, I'm elsewhere. And also, we have times when we're not dreaming and we're sound asleep and we're kind of perhaps in this neutral state of rest. And yet, we also have this statement, I am not the body, I am not even the mind. But what is the mind? Define the mind. The mind is that which is having these conscious thoughts arising, is what some would say. Okay, and really, what is the mind? What am I? I am. I am is that great realization, right? I am. Yes. I've been haunted by I am. Honestly, I had these dreams, and even in meditation sometimes I would have these very, very haunting feelings of kind of being haunted. And I would always go back to my youth and my childhood in my aunt's house, which was a big old Victorian house. A big old Victorian house with a spire on it, 3 floors, and there was one bathroom. There was I don't know, 7 bedrooms, maybe something like that. This was the family house, for 100 years. Well, I would just feel like there's something in that house. I would have these dreams. This happened to me for 30 years. Having these dreams about this house. It probably happened even longer than that before I realized what was going on. And I'd get the impression that there's something in the house. There's something in the house, but it's invisible. I can't see it. But clear impressions of going through and floating down the halls and, poking into the rooms, looking into the rooms, seeing clearly it's a bright sunny day, exactly what those rooms look like. And it would always kind of freak me out until I realized that point of consciousness was really me in an unembodied state, going through that house that so impacted me during my childhood, but I think was also part of a DNA heritage that I picked up from, the family that was living in there, as so many of my relatives lived in this house throughout the years, going back to around 1910. And, again, that's that sensation of being this localized point of consciousness that can go anywhere with just a thought. Just a thought, be somewhere totally different, experiencing something different. Well, our consciousness is again, a point on a particular ocean or in a particular sea, and it might feel localized because it is localized, and yet undeniably this is in reality. Even though we could separate them, you could say this is the Caribbean's its own entity, but in reality, doesn't the water from the Gulf of Mexico sometimes go into the Caribbean? Doesn't the Atlantic water go in? Again, it all depends on currents, the way things are flowing, and it's the same thing with consciousness. It all depends on how our consciousness is flowing, and we can change directions, and we sometimes can be under the influence of others and other belief systems and constructs that are given to us, even in a subconscious manner that we might not even really realize. So if your belief system is that nothing is permanent, everything is always changing, is that not still a belief system? Is it not? Again, when we look to, and we've had this discussion with a few of our dear family members that have been, very, very deep into the Buddhist system of things. And the ultimate goal there is kind of almost the annihilation of the self into the oneness of the universal consciousness yet again. And when we look to the Jain tradition is not to that extreme, not to that point of letting go of the feeling of individualization, a localized point of consciousness. It's instead to enjoy the higher realms with the higher Devic beings, what we would call, like a heavenly realm at the very highest level and degree. That's the ultimate goal of Jainism, and Jainism is one that really is founded on works of karma, by no harm, the principle of ahimsa, doing no harm to things. It really is a karma yoga based system in so many ways, trying to live as peaceful a life. That would be the goal of a Jain, so that you could rise upwards into the higher realms and experience a heavenly existence. But again, you can experience a heavenly existence. It's again, what is the you? Now, what we've gotten from the guides is that no system is perfect, because again, it couldn't be perfect, because we are even having these discussions and conceptualizations in a very imperfect state. The brain that we have is very handicapped purposefully, so we can have a particular type of experience. We cannot know and understand this while we are in the body. And yet we can kind of get a clue as to what's going to help us progress, help us expand, because this is really all about expansion of consciousness, is the whole point of these experiences. It's an expansion of consciousness.
Mm-hmm. And we are so fortunate, so very, very lucky to come here and be in these bodies to expand our consciousness. This is where the most growth happens. In fact, when you are in emotional pain and say you have one thing after another that's hitting you in life, these are things that are going to expand you. They are going to give you deeper meaning. They will give you wisdom. They will give you understanding. It's something, when something happens to you and it's really frustrating and painful, look at that. That is a blessing. That is something that's going to catapult you into another dimension. It's going to catapult you into another world. So whatever that thing was, don't be angry at that thing. Look at what you can do. How are you going to respond? And consciousness itself, it cannot be defined. There are no names and labels, and that's deliberate. This gets the human being experimenting, looking, seeing, what am I capable of? And so many other beings came down here to this planet with the same questions, with different abilities, and they created something where they are able to connect to their heart chakra and their pineal gland and move this huge thing we call consciousness and have it do things for them. And it is so magical. Now, they never ask us, the ones we deal with, they do not want to be worshipped in any way, shape, or form, but they did come to give us experience. We can look to them for inspiration. We can log into that soul stream that they have created for answers, but we're never expected to copy ourselves in any way. We are expected to ask questions, look, see what motivates us, what makes us happy, what makes us sad. Source wanted to know all of these things and has gifted us the very same thing that it has, and that's the gift of being.
Yeah, and even in Vedantic circles, in Hinduism, and these different traditions, you'll see there are all different subsets. You'll have dualism versus non-dualism. It's really just a matter of perspective. It truly is how we are viewing things. Are we viewing things from inside of a system? Are we trying to view things from standing away from the system and looking down? Again, if we are in the ocean in the Caribbean, and what's our existence? All we see all around us the whole time is seawater that is warm and inviting, and sometimes stormy and other times tranquil. But again, our whole existence is probably between 72 and 80 degrees or 85 degrees. Yet now if we shift our perspective and we head on down here, we're going to have a totally different perspective, a completely different perspective on things. And again, this is all relative to where we are shifting our consciousness. And we can shift our consciousness in so many ways. And this is the whole purpose of what we would call transmigration of the soul. Because, yes, you're probably more familiar with the term reincarnation, the thought that we're continually coming back as humans. But what we've gotten is that we don't have to come back as humans. And truly, too, in Hinduism, they teach transmigration of a soul, where we actually start out as something much more simple, like a elemental being taking care of a flower or a tree or a plant. And that elemental being will at some point embody itself as, perhaps a fish. And then at some point take, and again, you can look, and people have used the incarnations of Vishnu as a description. The first one's Matsya, and that's the fish man. And then going up to an incarnation as a turtle, and then an incarnation as a human, and then an incarnation as a perfect human. And then, you keep going on up the line, showing the evolution of the soul, because the soul does evolve. And what we've gotten from the guides too is that each unique soul, once birthed from source, is always going to be a unique soul.
We are in a place where we have a unique opportunity to come down in our most densest form and do things like wear clothes, give ourselves a different look, give ourselves a different way. We can create homes and live in them, and we can, our senses, it's such a sensual existence to be able to smell and feel, and be able to love as passionately as we do. It's a real blessing. And all of this information does go back to source. It's like every river, all rivers lead to the same ocean. And we are our own individual river of understanding, stream of understanding. And it's okay to be inspired. It's okay to be from spirit. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And within that, tapping into the spiritual part of things helps us understand and expand in our way, not in a way where the organized religions, we more than recognize how that has traumatized so many. And we try to help people find their own path by talking about how did we do it? How did we go through and experience all of these things and all of these understandings? So we just wanted to impart that with you, and hopefully on your journey, you will inspire and touch other people so that they might have the light of a deeper understanding while they're here, if that's what they came here to do. Maybe some people just came here for the whole tangible experience. And in some ways, thinking about that, if we are in spirit and we come here for a tangible experience, then aren't all the tangible things supposed to be the most important thing in someone's life, because that's what they wanted to experience. So we have all these blessings.
Yeah, again, each is unique, and that's the whole purpose of source. Basically, sending out individual units of itself to experience things from a slightly different perspective, every different perspective possible. And so, while the earth itself, as we were talking and using the oceans, and ultimately, all the ocean waters are not truly separated, and the rivers flow into the oceans, and the rains pick the oceans up, and the wind picks up the oceans, drops it back as rains. It goes through the experience of flowing through deserts and woodlands and every type of conceivable terrain, making its way back to an ocean, and still, each individual drop is its own unit of consciousness. And then, of course, the earth itself is sitting out there in this vast ocean of space, and our whole universe is just a single cell in something much, much bigger. Again, this is the as above, so below we see the denotation of the 4 traditional elements, and then there's the ether. The ether is that from which everything comes, and it's consciousness that pulls things into existence from the ether. And that just shows us that it's really about consciousness having an experience. That's ultimately it. We can control our own reality to a degree. This is a very, very thick, heavy, viscous existence. And most existences are much more fluid than this and much more malleable. When I'll ask Cindy, what is Lakshmi doing now? Well, Lakshmi's in a world of her own creation. It's exactly as she likes it. And so she likes things a certain way. It's beautiful and it is luxurious. Yet nature is everywhere. And she is doing her own thing. And I'll ask, well, what is Krishna doing right now? And she'll tell me. And, and again, it's that we're all existing in our own worlds, per se. We are creating our own worlds. Here is a little unique in that these our own bubbles of existence, our own consciousness bubbles, are interacting with each other's consciousness bubbles. And it does take what we would call time, more time, for changes to happen here, for us to change our perception of things, for us to literally change the landscape. It takes a lot more time than it does on the higher densities. We shared with you before, when my mother passed on, she immediately was still in her nightgown that she passed on in. But yet she was dancing around, which she hadn't been able to dance for years because her physical body had deteriorated, or her hip and her leg was bothering her so much, and she was a dancer. I remember surprising her on her 80th birthday, and because I had moved far away, but I showed up unexpectedly, and at 80 she was dancing and kicking head high, and that's just the type of person she was. So her spirit, when it left the body, was dancing around happy as can be. I can move again. I'm not encumbered by this heavy, heavy, dense existence. But she didn't even realize all she had to do was simply think, beautiful dress. Let's go to a dance. And poof, she's in a beautiful dress just by thinking it. Here we have to conceptualize and actually, as we would say, either go to the store or you're going to make something. And this is the purpose of this existence. This existence is heavy and dense because we can learn a lot from it. It takes longer, again, on this density, perceptively longer, as time itself is an illusion on the higher densities, to manifest change.
Mm-hmm. We use time as a marker to have experiences, or, go from point A to point B. But that was probably one of the harder things about my journey, is to understand, I mean really experience and understand that there is no time. That's just, there is no time. And when you come down in this density and you're looking through everything that you're taught, it's like, oh, of course there's time. Time has to exist. It has to. but no, there is no time. And I guess these are things that you come to realize when you're able to quiet the mind and still the waters so things are not so sloshy, and then you can see deep into everything on a deeper level. You can see things for what they are, because things below the water is now stilled, so you can see through the stilled clean water, and we can see our temples that way, and being sure that we feed our temples the best things and take care of our bodies, and make sure we have the clearest vision possible for the experience we came here for.
Absolutely. So isn't the belief system that there should be no belief system still a belief system? Again, we can go in circles forever. What is the sound of one hand clapping, right? What came first, the chicken or the egg? There's all these things to just utilize as tools. It's a tool. The purpose behind really the guides bringing this up is because many individuals, unfortunately, can get trapped in a confused state for a period of quote-unquote time. Even though there is no time, what we do find is people that are traumatized can find themselves in confusion when they pass on. And when you look to the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and a lot of these different traditions, and they give you, these allegories and stories about, transitioning through a zone. You have to, the soul goes on a journey, and it's a perilous journey, and things of that nature. Again, these things are, again, conceptualizations which could be utilized, as the guides have said, in whether it's the Bhagavad Gita, the Ramayana, whether it's the biblical stories, they always refer to them all as stories. Are they useful to you? If not, then why bother with them? Because again, it's all an individual journey for the soul. When souls are traumatized, such as, being in complete fight or flight, battlefield type situations, things like that, being somebody that is unfortunately trapped in a cycle of self-abuse, utilizing certain substances, which are constantly opening up the door to darker energies coming in. Yeah, absolutely. When these souls go and pass on, a belief system can most definitely anchor them. So if somebody is really traumatized, but somebody is, say, an alcoholic, and somebody passes on as an alcoholic that is in a state of frequency for a long period of time, that's what we would call a lower vibrational zone, or under the influence of other substances, chemical substances that lower your frequency, the things that are going to be around you trying to take advantage of you can't seem very real. And they can, definitely help to keep you in a state of being lost, and whether you want to view it as a purgatory or a bardo or what have you. Again, when you look to Sheol and Hades and these different legends of these, gray, shadowy zones and stuff. Yeah, a belief system that you're going to encounter Yeshua, or you're going to be embraced by Vishnu or Lakshmi or Kuan Yin, again, whatever is comfortable to you can help, because, that's going to help to hold you in a feeling of love. Like if you equate Yeshua with love, and you're focusing on Yeshua, and you're transitioning, saying a prayer, doing a mantra, whatever you want to say, casting a spell to bring Yeshua into your life, then, your focus is going to be on what you conceptualize Yeshua as, and you can pull your own vibrational frequency higher, or Kuan Yin, or Lakshmi, or Saint Germain, or Buddha, or whatever. It's whatever is comfortable to you, and whatever you visualize the personification of love and compassion and all those beautiful emotions to be. So feeling that, you will be greeted by your mom, your dad, your grandfather, whoever it is that had passed on ahead, and holding that strong can help pull you up so that you immediately are up in a better vibrational frequency and find more clarity, and you are greeted by loved ones.
The lower 4D is extremely chaotic. It's very, very chaotic. And when you're transitioning, your body is getting less dense and you are able to see more things around you. And depending on what kind of things that you're doing is going to kind of depend on your frequency and what you're going to see around you. But definitely lifting your heart up, looking to inspiration to hold your heart chakra in a state of stillness and a state of peace. This is really going to help with the transition process. And also some people are, they're with loved ones who are passing, who are crossing over, and you are you're a support system for them. You can do things like you can clear the area around them, you can shower them with love and understanding, and this can bring the vibration up so that they do have a nice experience, so they do have a nice passing. No one wants to pass alone. They want to know that they're loved, and you can bring that to them, and it's such a beautiful gift. Dying is a part of living. It's a part of life, and it's a cycle of life, and it's very, very natural. And we can adjust the way we pass or the way our loved ones pass. It doesn't have to be a really scary, horrible situation. And it is helpful to lean on one another and have an understanding of what is out there beyond me. What is beyond me?
So what we've gotten from the guides is that once you have a sense of self, you never lose your sense of self. But your realization of self expands when you're out of the body. So again, I just will reiterate that. Once you have a sense of self, that can never be taken from you. Yet, while you're in the body, your perception of that sense of self is very limited. And I would invite you to meditate on that. As always, guys, much love. Thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. If you need to make an appointment, it's evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.